Big Buck Registries, Big Buck Podcast, episode number 29. Big Buck Registry is a virtual museum of hunting stories. We preserve a piece of Americana by interviewing and recording hunters about their hunts and experiences from across the country. And who knows, maybe we'll learn a thing or two along the way that'll help us take our hunt to the next level.
Hi, I'm Amanda Lowry, finalist in the Extreme Hunters Contest.
This is Boyd Barnett with Moultrie Products and the Moultrie Total Game Management Podcast.
This is Dean Vanier with Northwoods Common Sense.
This is Rob Lucas from Chasing Tail.
Tim Moore from TimMooreOutdoors.com, the New Hampshire Seacoast Guide.
This is Nathan Biggs with Browtime Productions.
You're listening to the
Big Buck Registries, Big Buck Podcast.
Welcome to the show, everybody. This is Jay Scott, your host of the Big Buck Registries, Big Buck Podcast. And this is episode number 29. And I'm here with my good friend and field correspondent from Ohio, Dusty Phillips. Dusty, what's happening?
What's happening, Jay? Not a whole lot down here in Ohio, just got some great news about getting out to PA for the up-and-coming show out there. And, I'm looking forward to that. And I think that me and you are going to finally hook up to do some on-the-scene podcasting.
Nice. Now, what is the name of the show?
It's a Great American Outdoors.
Awesome. And that's in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
That is correct.
We're gonna make our appearance there and see if we can get everybody to learn who we are. So that's going to be pretty cool. Did you know that this is episode number 29? We're zeroing in on episode 30.
I do know that, and I know one thing. It's been a fun journey.
It has been tremendous. We're so young at this, but the connections and the things that we've learned along the way are tremendous. For sure. It's been great. And, we got to give shout out to the people we've had on. It's, thanks for joining us. That takes time out of your day, and we really appreciate it. It takes a little gumption too. It's not so easy just to, get on a microphone or on a phone and know that you're being recorded. It's kind of intimidating in a sense. How did you feel the first time I interviewed you?
I was pretty nervous, but you get over it. First 10 minutes, it was a little shady. But after that, you got an awesome host here, obviously you.
Well, thank you.
And now that the co-host has joined you, that just makes it that much more awesome, and I think people enjoy us, and that means a lot. When you get on the phone or on an interview with somebody that you enjoy talking with, that makes the interview a whole lot better.
Yeah. It's just about being yourself when you're on the phone or on Skype or whatever. It's just about being yourself. You can tell when we talk to a podcaster if they're actually a podcaster, because they're kind of used to that. And then you can tell the people that haven't done it very much at all, and they're a little nervous. But tonight we've got a very interesting host, or guest, not a host. I'm a host. You're a host. We have a guest. His name is Matt Lindsey, and Matt is from Obsessive Whitetail Disorder. And it is a made-up disorder that Matt has created. And it's about the passion that we all have for whitetail deer hunting. And he's created a Facebook page. And it was kind of funny because Matt came on and he wanted to do a share for share, which you and I get bombarded with day in, day out, which is fine because it's kind of this thing that Facebook does. And it definitely helps you get some likes.
Yeah, for sure.
I think that's good to get your name out there, but I like to go further.
It gives us leverage for getting somebody on a podcast. For you request share for share, you're going to get on the mic.
Right, exactly. So I get so many of them, but there are some that I just think need to be on the show.
They stand out.
They stand out a little bit. Some are just a share for share, but some I want more information. I want to hear their story.
And that's what we're going to do tonight.
Yep. So let's get Matt on.
Let's do it.
All right, Matt, welcome to the Big Buck Registries Big Buck Podcast.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, man, we're psyched to have you. It's good to have a fellow hunter on the air again. And we know you're a good deer hunter, and you're trying to do some good stuff with your website. So we thought it was a good time to have you on.
Well, I'm glad to be here.
Cool, man.
Welcome aboard, Matt.
Thank you.
Now, tell us where you're from, Matt.
New Berlin, Illinois, which is basically right in the center of the state.
Center of Illinois. Gotcha.
Yep, the center of Illinois.
All right. And how far is it from Chicago?
We are right at about 300 miles or so from Chicago.
Okay. Gotcha. And did you grow up in Illinois?
I did. Yeah, I grew up right here in not New Berlin, but a little town called, well, actually in the country outside of Mechanicsburg, which is about 25 miles from where I'm at, 30 miles.
Mechanicsburg. Okay. And
yep.
What was life like growing up in Illinois?
It's country life. I worked on a farm starting in about the 6th grade all the way till I graduated out of school. Best friend of mine's father owned a farm, and that's basically what we did. We played a lot of basketball, hung out in the outdoors a lot, and did a lot of work. So it was, pretty much the straight country life like most people think it is.
Awesome. Sounds good. Sounds like that lifestyle might lead to some pretty good deer hunting.
Yeah, well, if anybody knows anything about Illinois, they've got a lot of big buck deer, a lot of deer in general.
That's what I heard. I have not officially gone beyond the airport in Illinois, just flying through that kind of stuff. But someday I hope to take a whole tour of the United States and probably stop in each state and hunt myself. I think that's kind of like one of those lifetime goals. So someday I'll be where you are.
Yeah, well, Illinois is one of the best states to hunt in. Midwest, Corn Belt, Iowa, Illinois, they're all great states to deer hunt in.
Yep. So you're a passionate deer hunter.
Oh, absolutely. Anybody that knows me knows that deer hunting and hunting in general is on my mind 24/7, 365. I mean, that's what I live to do.
That's cool. Your mission statement on your Facebook page actually states that. White-tailed deer, 24/7, 365.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit more about what that means to you.
It's just a matter of, when, even if deer season is in Illinois here, bow season starts October 1st and it goes out about the 2nd week, 3rd week, sometimes in January, even in the off season. It doesn't matter if it's spring or summer, just driving, anytime I'm driving, no matter what I'm doing, whether it's going to the timber or going to work or whatever it is, I mean, my eyes are constantly peeled in fields and just looking for wildlife. And like I said, it's on my mind constantly. It's about all I ever think about. I guess I don't know how else to explain it. That's kind of where the Facebook page came from. There's a funny story behind that. I don't know if you guys want to get into that or not, but there is a funny story behind it. The obsessive whitetail disorder, most people don't know. It is exactly what it states. It is an obsession. A few buddies of mine, we were sitting at my property one night on the lane, and one of my buddies, we got to talking about deer hunting shows, and one of the guys had asked me, if you had a TV show, what would you call it? And it immediately popped in my head, and I said, OWD. And they said, well, what is OWD? And I said, well, you guys know what OCD is, correct? And they said, yeah. And I said, well, this is obsessive whitetail disorder. And of course, we all just started laughing. And I don't know, about midway through 2013, I never really did anything of it that night. We kind of left and never really thought about it. And I thought, well, it'd be kind of interesting to pop up a Facebook page and call it obsessive whitetail disorder and see if there would be anybody else out there that, I guess, suffers from what I'm suffering from, because it literally is, it is an obsession. I mean, I think about it constantly.
I may have the same thing.
God, I think I have OWD.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because it's a very catchy phrase, and people that are like me get it. They understand it. And I guess if you're not into the deer hunting, then it may not click with you, but a lot of people get it, though.
I've been trying to figure out what to call this disease I got, and I think I found it.
I do like the name OWD. I think that's it's unique, and it really explains a lot. I like that. Very nice. Matt, tell us, you said you developed the site from hanging out with a group of your hunting buddies. Is that who you were hanging out with at the time?
Yeah. There was 2 or 3 of us out at the property that I own, and to be honest with you, we were just hanging out.
Gotcha.
We weren't really doing a whole lot anything.
Who are the cast of characters you were hanging out with that day?
Carl Leonard and Brian Bentley, a couple guys that hunt with me quite a bit.
They tell us about them a little bit. Where they're from the area? Are they local boys?
Yeah. Well, Carl, I've worked with Carl. I work at a Kenworth Volvo semi-truck dealership, and him and I have worked together for the last 12 or 13 years, and we've been hunting together for every bit of that. And Brian Bentley is just a friend of mine that I've known for probably 15 years. I've been hunting on and off with him. He's a union electrician, and they're just like me. I mean, there's a lot of other guys that I hunt with, but they all seem to suffer from the same thing I do, because they're constantly, it's every weekend we're out in the timber doing something.
Gotcha.
Or if you can get disability for this
It'd be nice if you could.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna check into that.
I would say you should submit some paperwork and just see if you can get it claimed, and it might actually scoot through. That would be excellent.
Yeah, I mean, that's qualifications for Social Security disability in my eyes. I mean, I don't. There ain't no worse disease than what I've got.
I'm sure there's been people file for worse.
So, Matt, tell us about the land that you own. You said you own some land, and that's where you hang out with your buddies, your deer hunting buddies.
Yeah, it's a funny story. My dad is actually the one that got me into deer hunting when I was about 12 or 13 years old. And regretfully, in 1996, he was struck with cancer and passed away. And he had purchased this land in Morgan County in 1989. He purchased it, and he was a hunter himself. He was a traditional bow hunter. He shot a longbow. And when he passed, he left it to me, and I've had it ever since.
Gotcha. So an unfortunate circumstance, but it's given you some true loves of your life out there.
Absolutely.
Gotcha.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool.
Tell us about your dad. He must have had some influence on your life growing up.
Oh, he was a great person. He worked at IDOT for close to 30 years. I'm not 100% sure. He basically, anytime they went to draw up new roads, he was on the architectural side. He kind of went over the paperwork and looked at the road work to make sure everything was okay. But again, his passion was also in the deer hunting and archery in general. He started off basically like a lot of people do in the compound bow, and that became fairly easy for him. So he decided to get into the traditional side of it. Started with recurves and ended up going into longbows. And he actually he shot the longbow, but made all of his own strings. He made all of his own arrows out of wooden dowel rods. Checked spline. He's got a tool that he made to check the spline on the arrows. He basically did it all, and made his own quivers, put the broadheads on, put the knocks on, put the fletching on, and absolute dead-eye shot with longbow. He would shoot no matter what time of year, obviously not in the winter, but anytime, spring, summer, and fall, if he could get outside and shoot, he was shooting anywhere from 3 to 5 nights every 7 days. So he was pretty passionate about it, and he's the one that kind of got me into archery and got me into bow hunting.
Gotcha. So you would credit him with pretty much all your outdoor knowledge at this point?
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100%.
Outdoor dads are good like that. There's no question.
Oh, yes, I agree.
They don't get no better.
No, it really doesn't.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't. I think every kid, whether they're from a city or the country, should at least have the opportunity to experience hunting to see if it's something they're going to enjoy or not, because surprisingly, that most kids do enjoy that.
Absolutely. I absolutely love taking my kids hunting, and I think they'll appreciate it down the road, as I have appreciated my father for taking me out. It's some of the best memories I have, no question.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's as most people know, whether you're taking a kid or a buddy or a girlfriend or a wife that's never been, there's so much more above and beyond just the kill when you're hunting. It's just, I don't know, it's just unexplainable. The time that you spend with somebody out in the outdoors is precious. I mean, it really is. It's good bonding time.
Absolutely. Matt, on this land, I assume that the deer that you submitted to the Big Buck Registry is from the property that you hunt.
Yes.
Could you walk us through some of that hunt? I'm going to have Dusty kind of go through the details. I just texted Dusty a picture of the buck, and maybe you can walk through that with Dusty. Dusty, you want to take it from here?
Yeah.
I wish I could get that picture of the text you got, but I don't have it in front of me. Matt, tell us a little bit about, from the beginning to the end. We're going to walk through a hunt. Is this one of your most memorable hunts?
Yeah, it is, because it's the largest buck that I've ever harvested to date.
Yeah, I just got the picture of that. That's a really nice looking buck you got there for sure.
Well, I appreciate it.
Did you get it scored by chance?
I did. Well, we rough scored it ourselves. I did not get it officially scored, but we can rough score just going off the Boone and Crockett scoring system. We rough scored it at 164 2/8.
That's a nice one. Congratulations on a great buck for sure. Tell us about the day. What was the weather conditions like whenever when you hunted that buck?
Well, it's funny. I started setting trail cameras out probably in June, and I've got somewhere between 12 and 15 trail cameras throughout different properties that I set, and started running those. And I come across we ended up naming that buck Hercules, by the way. I come across that buck. I like
it's crazy you say that, because I love naming bucks. That's my game.
Yeah.
Jay will tell you that's something I do a ton of.
Hercules showed up on a trail camera about the second or third week into October when I had gone in to check, and I at that point had made the decision. I hadn't even hunted the property yet. I was sneaking in, checking cameras, and getting out. And due to some work schedule and some other items, I just hadn't made it to my property yet. So I came across that trail camera picture of Hercules, and at that point, I had decided that he was there, he was staying there, and I wanted him to stay there. So I decided to stay out of my property completely until the last week of October. As most people know, that's when most big bucks are on their feet and moving. That last week of October, first week of November, they start getting on their feet. They start, rubbing. They start making their rounds. And I had decided at that point, last week of October, I would try and get in there. It just so happened that the last weekend in October, I believe this year, the weather was not right. The wind direction wasn't right for the stand setup that I had. So I stayed out, and Lord have mercy, don't let my work find out. But I ended up calling in and using the sick day on Monday. On I believe it was October. It was October 28th. I believe it was a Monday.
The disease
I'm sorry.
The disease that you have qualifies for some sick days. I'll tell you that straight up.
Well, OWD, after I saw the trail camera picture of Hercules, had really set in. So I had checked the weather on my phone app and noticed that the wind direction was going to be out of the south, which was a perfect setup. The weather itself, as far as precipitation, was gone, so the conditions were perfect for Monday. So I called in and decided to hunt that stand.
Did you tell him that you had?
I'm sorry.
Did you tell him that you had OWD that day when you called in?
I did not. No,
I
did
should
not.
have.
But I think everybody at work knows that I have that.
You should have just said OWD's kicked in. I will not be in today. Thanks. Yeah, I don't think the boss would like that too much. But anyway, the morning started off pretty slow as the year had been. Few does had come through about 7 or 7:30 that morning, and I really hadn't seen another deer one until about 9:30 in the morning. Just so happened to be in the stand. 9:30 in the morning, I was looking back to the northwest, nothing, turned and looked back to the south, and here come Hercules on a string. I mean, he was making his rounds, and he literally he walked right by the trail camera that I had pictures of him on. And I actually have a trail camera picture about a minute before I shot him of his, I believe it was his left antler, because he walked by the camera and it triggered and it took the picture of him. He come on through. I let him come. Of course, he was coming straight at me. I had no shot. He kind of 20 yards away, ended up perfect broadside. I actually shot the first time and I missed. I don't know if I hit a limb or if I just flat blew the shot, but I did miss. I don't normally tell people that, and I don't normally miss, but I did miss on him. Maybe it was nerves. I don't know.
Right. So there's no better place than to tell that story on the Big Buck Registry podcast, right? Sure. Let's just say,
but they don't normally miss.
Right. We'll just tell the world.
Well, most people don't like to admit that they miss, but I will tell you that I just flat missed. I shot underneath him at 20 yards, and I couldn't believe it. But as I'm sure most people know, the bows these days are extremely quiet, extremely fast, so he never even knew what happened. Shot and missed at 20 yards, and he continued on. I ended up stopping him again. Stopped him at 25 and a half yards, quartering away shot, and just buried it right in the pump station. So that was pretty much it. He went about 70 yards into a cornfield, and that's where he retired.
Right. I'm going to back you up a little bit. We're going to break this hunt down. You talked about you got a phone app. Can you tell us a little bit more about this phone app that you're using to check the conditions at your stand?
It's just a weather app. We get our local weather here is from AccuWeather, ACCU weather. It comes out of Lincoln, and you can check, obviously precipitation. You can check wind speed, humidity levels. They'll tell you the barometric pressure, which, a lot of people will tell you a lot of different things on barometric pressure, high or low, and bucks move in and out, and I'm not saying that that's not good information to have, but after the 20 years plus of deer hunting that I've done, I can tell you that if you want to kill a mature buck, the very first defense that obviously a deer has is his nose. And if you're not playing the wind, you may as well just stay home.
Right, for sure. What was the weather temperature that particular day? You remember?
I want to say it was fairly sunny. It was in the mid to upper 40s, probably somewhere in there, maybe close to 50.
Yeah, it sounds like prime deer hunting weather for sure.
Oh, it was gorgeous. It was a beautiful morning.
So you got this monster buck. You've checked the weather. You've checked your trail cameras. He's coming in. You know he's in the area. What are you in a ladder stand, climber, hang on? Tell us what kind of stand setup that you're in.
The stand that I actually have, I've got 6 bucks mounted hanging on the wall, and all but one have come out of that stand. We call the name of that stand is the middle stand, just because that's a long time ago. We used to have 3 stands lined up on the east end of my property, one on the north, one in the middle, and one on the south, and we would hunt those stands according to the wind direction. And obviously, this is the one that was in the middle, so we just named it the middle stand. It is not a ladder stand. It is a portable, but it is called a bushwhacker. A while back, several years ago, I decided that tree that stand was in when I was hunting a portable, the stand was going to be there for a while, so I wanted to go and I wanted to purchase something with a larger platform because I knew that the stand was going to be in that tree for several years. So I went and bought a bushwhacker, and the platform is not the traditional portable platform that's in a square or a rectangle shape. This stand actually it looks like a fantail. It is a very large platform. The seat is not attached to the stand. It is actually a seat by itself that's strapped to the tree. So that's the stand setup. And climbers, if you get into it, it's anywhere from probably somewhere around 22 foot in the air.
That's enough for sure. You out there, you've got your stand hung, and obviously you got some nice bucks. And I think next year I'm gonna claim the middle stand in Iowa. You don't mind, do you? Come out and hunt your stand, killing $5. What the heck? But you're in the middle stand. What kind of landscape are we talking here? We in a field? You in hard timber? Tell us a little bit about the terrain.
We're in hard timber. It's the land is basically laid out in an L shape. I do not own any of the tillable. I own the timber only, and it's laid out in an L shape. So I'm basically I've got a 360 block to my east that another gentleman owns. That we've got a really good relationship together. As far as I shoot a buck on me, it runs on you. Do I have permission to go get it? Yes. And basically, if you can picture it, there's a 360 block to the east. There's my strip of timber that is in between it, and then there's another great big block to the west. So that creates a funnel. It's basically a hallway for those deer to travel from one big block to the next. To get from point A to point B, they got to come through me.
How many acres are you on there?
Believe it or not, it is 19.73 acres, so it's not much, but it is a prime layout, and it is in a prime location. So it's right at, we call it the 20. We just rounded it up and made it 20 acres.
Right. That's something that, a lot of our listeners think that it takes big acreage for, really mature bucks, and that's not correct. There's a lot of big monster bucks that's been shot on small acreage.
Absolutely not. One of the biggest keys to whether it's 5 acres or 500, one of the keys to killing big deer, obviously, is play to win and low pressure. And it just so happens that I did both, and it worked out for me. I had stayed out of that timber the entire month of October until the end, just because I knew he was in there, and it's such a small amount of acreage. If we were in there, continuously Saturday and Sunday and Monday and kept hunting, it's a very good chance we could have pushed him out. And you push out a mature deer once or twice, and they usually just don't come back.
Yeah, pressure. They don't like the pressure, and you're bringing up some great points, Matt. We want to break that down a little bit too here. A lot of high pressure on mature whitetails will absolutely make them go scarce on your farm. And, that's something that most hunters don't. It's another, point that most hunters don't realize, that pressure, walking in and out of there, them seeing you every day, they're going to get used to it, but they're also going to know the times that you come in and out, daylight, dark. They're going to realize that you're there in daylight hours and not show up like you like them to. That's a great point. The pressure there, keep it out of your woods.
Absolutely, and then on top of it's not just the pressure, it's scent that you're laying down. When you're checking trail cameras, there's a lot of guys that will go in and check trail cameras with leather boots and blue jeans and a t-shirt. They're not scent free. They just got off of work. Hey, I'm gonna go run trail cameras, and you can't do that. You can't, because you're laying down scent. Not only are you visibly putting pressure in, you're laying scent down for him to come across, and it doesn't take much, to take a mature buck like that to come across your scent once or twice, and he's going to know that something's not right, and he's going to find somewhere else to go.
Yeah, he's going to go somewhere that he feels safer. Tell us a little bit about your gear that you go to the woods in. Give us a head to toe equipment check on what you, for one, your boots, your attire, as far as your camouflage. Tell us what you wear, and then we'll get into a little bit about your equipment as far as your bow and stuff.
I don't hunt. I don't hunt with anything out of the ordinary that anybody else that hunts. It's Realtree camouflage. It's lacrosse rubber boots, ball cap that obviously I take everything I own down to my underwear, and it all gets washed, scent-free soap every single time before I go out. I've got a scent lock suit. I was not wearing that day. There is a good call for scent lock. I do believe it works. But if you can't afford scent lock or you just don't believe in it, my dad hunted for years in blue jeans and a plaid shirt when the weather called for it. The whole objective, obviously, with camouflage is to break up your outline. You don't have to look like a tree. You just can't look like a giant blob standing 20 foot up in a tree. If a deer happens to look at you, you're just trying to break up your outline. So Realtree camo, camouflage ball cap, lacrosse rubber boots. The bow that I was shooting is a Matthews Helium. I shot an AR, which is a PSE Spiff is what that is. I shot an AR for several years. And another good story rolls into this. My better half was gracious enough 2 years ago to surprise me with an early Christmas gift with the Matthews Helium bow that she had purchased, unbeknownst to me. I came home one night after work, and she called. Go ahead.
I wouldn't tell that to everybody. You got a woman. You got a woman there buying you bows like that. There's guys that come after women like that.
All right. Well, I've been asked several times if she's got a sister that's available.
Right on. Yeah. Does she?
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
So I come home. She comes home. She opens up the hatch of her car or her vehicle, and there sits the box. And I pulled it out, and I said, "What's this?" And she said, "It's yours." And I said, "Well, I don't need it," because I knew at the time what the bow cost. And I just told her, I said that there's nothing wrong with my old bow, and I know what this one cost. There's no sense in doing this. And she said, "No." She said, "It's an early Christmas gift, and I want you to be able to use it, so it's yours." So I was gracious enough to get that, and then basically equipped it with an HHA single pin sight. I shot multi-pin sights on that AR for years. Every bow I've ever shot had a multi-pin sight, but I come to find out when I took the multi-pin sight off the AR and put it on this Matthews, that the Matthews bow was a lot faster than the AR I'd been shooting, and to sight that in, once I got it sighted in, my 20, 30, and 40-yard pins were stacked on top of each other, and I couldn't see. So right. I made the switch to a single pin adjustable, which I highly recommend. The visibility through that sight is phenomenal. It really is. Shooting a Scott release, finger trigger, not a thumb, index finger release. Shooting carbon arrows with a 100-grain Rage 2-blade broadhead, short vanes.
Did you get the Rage in the cage?
I tell you what, I was a little skeptical about 4 or 5 years ago. I made the switch to a mechanical blade because everybody had heard horror stories about the mechanical blades not opening when they hit the deer, and the Rage came out, and I decided, well, I'll try these and see what happens. And I can tell you honestly to date that I have shot several deer with the Rage 2-blade 100-grain broadhead, and I've recovered every single one I've ever shot.
So you got a heck of a combination there. You've got the OWD and a Rage in the cage. You're on to something, man. You got it going on there.
I know it.
Jay, what kind of questions you got for Matt?
All right, Matt, where do you want to take OWD?
Boy, if I had an answer for that question, I would have answered it several times. When I created this page and created OWD, the very first question that most people ask me is, what is it? And to this day, I can tell you, I'm not sure what it is. Where would I like to take it? Well, I've got the princess dream or the fairy dream that, hey, you know what? If I could hunt for a living, I would. Why? Because it's my passion. It's what I love. I don't want to get rich over it. I'm not looking for money by any means. This whole thing evolved basically just to get people on the page that are just like me, that love to deer hunt. They have a passion for it. They like talking about it. They like seeing them. Check stations went away several years ago in Illinois, and I hated to see that, because one of the things I can remember with my dad is going to a check station, and for those people that don't know what a check station is, when you shot a deer back in the day, you did not call that deer in like you do now and get a number over the phone and write the number on the tag and then you take it home. You actually physically had the deer deer in the truck with the tag on it, and you had to go to a check station, and there were people there that check your deer in physically. And, hanging out at the check station and seeing all the deer that people would bring in, the big bucks or the does or whatever, that was all part of it. So they did away with that. But OWD, I don't know where it was. I've got some apparel that I've come up with. Drew up a logo, slapped it on a shirt, printed some up. People love them. And like I said, it's not a scam or a scheme to get rich. It's just for those people that have it. I mean, I don't care if I'm wearing a Browning shirt or an OWD shirt or anything with a deer on it. As long as it's got something to do with the outdoors, I'm usually sporting it. So the end result with OWD, if I could get a big company involved and they wanted to get in and we could take it somewhere. We've been trying to do a little filming with a GoPro this year, trying to get some films. I wish I'd have had it. I actually had the GoPro with me the day I shot Hercules, but I had it on a head strap, and I don't know if anybody's ever tried a head strap, but you can only put those on for a couple hours before the tension from the head strap starts to get uncomfortable. I had taken the GoPro off and was hanging on the hook where the backpack is, and then when Hercules came in, the last thing I was thinking about was grabbing the GoPro. I was focused on him.
Gotcha.
Gotcha.
I know when Dusty's not skateboarding, he likes to take his GoPro with him in the field.
They're a pretty awesome camera.
Yeah.
Skateboarding, you got me figured out on that one. Yeah, it'd be like cow on ice with me on a skateboard. A skateboard. Where'd you come up with that at?
I don't know. It just came in my head. I can.
I guess to answer the question, where OWD ends up, I don't know. Would I like it to get bigger? Obviously. I mean, that's the end all to end all that everybody loves it and everybody gets involved and everybody's happy and everybody gets to talk about hunting and gets to wear OWD apparel. So I get, right now I just have to see where it goes.
You hear that, Dusty? Matt has T-shirts.
I do.
Yeah, Matt,
I don't know.
I'm getting ready to join you on the T-shirt club, actually.
I actually, a funny story to lead into it with the shirts. Have you guys ever heard of Shields?
Yes.
I got hooked up with a buddy of mine that is the head of security. We just got a Shields here in Springfield a couple of years ago, and a buddy of mine is the head of security over there. And I just happened to hit him up one day when this whole T-shirt bit started, and I asked him, I said, what's the chances that Shields would be interested in putting some OWD shirts inside the store for sale? And he said, well, I don't know, but I can find out. Well, long story short, I ended up getting hooked up with a guy over there at Shields, showed him what I had, and they are currently inside Shields for sale for anybody that would like to purchase them.
That's awesome. Very cool.
Yeah, it's pretty humbling when you have an idea come in your head. I actually drew up the logo myself, put it on a piece of paper. It ends up on a shirt, and a big company like that bites on it, and they show an interest in it. It really makes you feel warm and tingly, I guess, inside that somebody shows an interest in what you've got.
Yep. Yeah, Matt, when you first you sent in you asked for a share for share on our Facebook page, and I get bombarded with those things, and Dusty does too on Chubby Tines, and it's I like to take the share for share and turn it into something that's a little deeper than just a click of a button. And that's why I asked you to be on the show today, is because I know you had something good here, and that it was good to get it out there and explain it in a little more depth than just posting it on Facebook. So I'm glad you came on, because I think it really got to the heart of what you're all about and what you're trying to do over there. And even if you don't really have a clear direction yet, the passion is coming through. And that's the key to this whole thing.
Absolutely. The share for share is, as I'm sure anybody in the social media knows, it's extremely hard to get any kind of exposure when you live in a town of 1,000 people or 1,500 people in New Berlin. I've got stickers on my truck that, hey, hunt us down on Facebook. And it's just a matter of trying to build an audience and getting out to trying to reach other hunters. And that's the reason for the share for share. I don't know any other way to do it. I'm not going to claim to be the most intelligent person with the social network. And hell, I didn't even know what a share for share was until somebody asked me what it was, and I thought, well, that would work. And I just started getting on Facebook and tried to find other hunting pages that would have hunters involved that may end up liking to talk about deer. And it's not just deer. We hunt everything. We're getting ready to probably go out this weekend and try and put smack down on a few coyotes, and then that'll roll into spring turkey season,
right.
And then food plots and whatnot.
Right. Yeah, and I think Dusty and I can relate to what you're trying to do. Is we're kind of doing the same thing, and I think the more we stick together, the better off we're all going to be in the end. So that's great.
Yes, sir. Yes,
for sure. This is a big learning curve. I come from a small farm community in Farmersville, Ohio, and I'm going to put it on the map. One day there's going to be a big warehouse here for Chubby Tines Outdoors, and along with Big Buck Registry is going to be right beside me. But, as we go, we learn, we figure things out, and try to make the next best move for ourselves.
Yep, exactly.
And Jay and I definitely, we feel you, and we definitely wish you the best of luck at everything you do with your page and what you got going on there. And your disease is definitely contagious, and you're not the only one.
Well, I appreciate the time and having me on for the interview. It's always fun to talk to other people about what you're passionate about, and I can talk. Anybody that knows me knows I talk for hours about myself.
Awesome.
We feel you. That's why there's a Big Buck Registry, Big Buck podcast. We can talk big bucks for hours, for days, months,
absolutely.
Years.
Absolutely.
We could do it.
I've been doing it for years, so
Yep. It's like hanging around on the porch at deer camp. Just never ends. That's awesome.
It is.
Well,
it
Matt,
is. Yeah, lots of good times.
Matt, I will send you the post of the podcast as soon as it's released. It'll be out this Saturday, and you can share it with your community on your page, and we'll obviously be sharing it on ours as well. And,
well, very good.
We'll spread the word for you.
Okay, well, I thank you guys for having me, and thanks for the time.
All right, Matt, take care, man.
Thanks.
Okay,
have a good one.
All right, bye-bye.
All righty.
Well, that was pretty cool talking to Matt.
For sure.
Obsessive Whitetail Disorder. That's the name of his Facebook page. It's facebook.com/obsessive-whitetail-disorder.
I feel him.
Yep. I mean, I'm glad it kind of, for a second there, I thought it was like a disease, but it's really not a disease. It's a disorder. Something that you could correct, but I don't want to correct it, because if loving whitetail hunting and everything that goes with it is wrong, I don't want to be right.
Yeah, I feel you. There's nothing better.
Absolutely. So the next up, we have another guest from Texas. Now, I'm going to actually play this for you, Dusty. This is one I did the other day when you were out shopping for tires. I think you had to head down to someplace on Craigslist or something, right? You had some tires for your Jeep.
Yeah, actually, picking up some new skins for put some new shoes on the old Jeeper.
Nice. So I'm going to play for you the interview that I did with Bonny Cook. Bonnie submitted a nice whitetail that she shot down in Texas, and kind of tells us some stories about how she ended up at that property she was at. And, sometimes you'd spend a lot of time out in the woods, and you hike and you hunt hard, but now and then it's just a matter of being in the right place at the right time. And that's the story that Bonnie's going to share with us tonight.
Awesome.
I am from East Texas.
Okay.
Close to Tyler.
Tyler, Texas. Got it. Okay. And did you grow up there?
I did. Born and raised here in East Texas.
All right. And how old are you, Bonnie?
I'm 41.
41. Very nice. What was it like growing up in that part of the country?
I grew up very country, very rural. Tyler's about the biggest city close to us. It's about 25 miles away. So where I'm at, I live in a town of about 1,100 people, and went to a school where kindergarten through 12th grades in like one building. So
Yep.
It's pretty small. So it's been wonderful. I grew up rodeoing with my mom, and we had horses, and I started barrel racing when I was about 3. My dad had nothing to do with horses. He had everything to do with motorcycles, three-wheelers, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, drag racing, all of that. So I had the best of both worlds. So I grew up doing a little bit of everything. So drag racing, racing three-wheelers, four-wheelers, and rodeoing. So
wow.
I had the best of both worlds, yeah.
Do you make a living at the rodeo?
No, not anymore. I used to do play days and stuff like that, but then I got out of it for several years, and I just started team roping again, which is pretty awesome, and can make some money at that, but mostly it's just a hobby, and it's fun stuff to do. But I still ride quite a bit, and still love to hunt and fish and all of that, like my daddy raised me doing. So
Gotcha.
I still do all of that stuff.
So hunting and fishing was an integral part of your growing up, basically.
Very, very much so. I wish I had $1 for every hour I've been on the river or hunting, either one. So, Daddy, we used to trot line and fish, and fishing on the river and fishing in the lake. And he taught me how to ski when I was about 9. He threw me out of the boat and said, ski back or drown. And so
Gotcha.
we grew up hunting and fishing and doing all that with my dad. So my mom liked to hunt too. She was more of a bird hunter and liked to do the trapping and stuff like that. But I didn't get into that very much, the bird stuff. I was more deer hunting for me.
Awesome. I think it's so cool when you integrate the outdoors into your life. It's just it makes you a better person somehow.
totally 100% agree with that.
So tell us, you sent in a big deer that you had shot, and you sent into the Facebook page that we have. And being a hunter, I'd like to go through some of the prep work that you put into your hunts. You don't just walk upon those types of deer all the time, but I have this feeling you're kind of a successful hunter, and the deer that you sent in is the kind of buck that you don't just randomly come upon usually. I mean, obviously there's that one in 100 chance that you might, but tell us what you do to prep for your hunts.
Actually, this one was pretty much a one in a lifetime hunt. He wasn't. I don't normally hunt at this place I was at. I usually hunt about 15 minutes from here towards Palestine, kind of a little bit farther south from my house, and that's where my stand is. And I've been out there and put corn out and cleared lanes and done all that. But I was invited to this place here to hunt, and with a friend of mine, and she was like, well, her dad was like, you can hunt my old stand. He's like, I don't ever hunt down there anymore. And actually, I think the feeder's empty. There's feeder down there, but it's empty, and I don't hunt down there anymore. He said, but you're welcome. I was staying up there with them for the weekend. We were just camping, and he's like, you can go sit in my stand if you want. I was like, okay. So I went and sat in his stand, and I was watching over to the right. It was like a big, huge open field, probably a 40-acre field, like a hay meadow.
Okay.
But it had a thick timber line, like all the way on two sides of it, and I was near the corner, and the feeder was kind of in that corner down there, but like I said, it has been empty for a long time. They didn't even use it anymore. So I just went out there I got to the stand at like 3:45 in the afternoon, and I didn't even go hunting that morning. We rode around on the four-wheeler and looked at stuff and just killing time around the deer lease. And so that afternoon I was like, let's go sit in that stand. So I went out there about, like I said, about 3:45. And 4 o'clock, I'm sitting there, and I see something move out in my periphery on my left side, and I looked over there pretty quick, and I saw a tree moving, pretty good-sized tree, and I was like, oh, my gosh, there is a big buck over there, or a big hog, one or the other, because we have lots of hogs, too.
Right.
And so I sit there, and I couldn't see anything, so I got my binoculars, and I looked through there, and I could see horns, and I was like, oh, my gosh, there's a buck over there. I was like, wow. So, I mean, I'd been in the stand 10 minutes, maybe, 10, 15 minutes.
So you got in at 3:45, and you're starting to see big buck activity around 3:50.
At 4 o'clock.
4 o'clock.
Right. Right at 4 o'clock.
Were you hunting with anybody?
Yes, the girl, the dad that let me come hunt in his stand, it was his daughter. She's 17. She came and sat down there with me. Just like I said, we've been running around on four-wheelers and stuff all day. She said, I'll go sit out there with you. So she was with me, and she took a picture of me shortly before that, like with my iPod of me in my stand with my gun, and I had it like aimed out the window because I'd pulled up my scope. And she took a picture of me, and I wish I would have had her put it on video and videotape it, but we thought about that, hindsight later. So, but anyway, I saw movement, and I was like, oh wow. So I got my binoculars, and I saw him, or I saw horn, and then I saw him move, and I could see his body, and I kept looking, and he was standing behind this big, huge oak tree. I could see his horn sticking out one side, but didn't ever get to his body, really. And I sat there and watched him. He was eating leaves off the tree and just kind of wandering around. He wasn't chasing a doe. He was by himself.
Okay. How far away was he at this point?
This was probably about 125 yards, 150 yards.
Okay. And
I didn't have my rangefinder with me, so I didn't know exactly, but it was a good 125, 150 yards. And
could you just describe the hunt setup a little bit more from where you were in your tree stand to where he was? What was between you two?
That open field.
Just an open field.
And like the open field. The deer stand, it was actually a big blind. It was up about 7 foot off the ground, and it was a box blind. And it was green camouflage netting around the opening. So, and like it had been there years. Some of the boards were rotten. It was kind of falling down.
Oh, wow.
And so it wasn't like no big fancy stand, but I didn't care. To me, any hour in a deer stand, I don't care if I see anything but squirrels and crows. It's just being out there, So I was like, heck yeah, I'll go sit in the stand, and I wasn't expecting to see anything. So,
what about the weather? Weather itself? What was the weather like?
It was probably 55, 58 degrees that day. Sunshine, beautiful day. It was gorgeous, and it was the day after Thanksgiving, Black Friday.
Yep.
And I was like, I'm not going shopping. I want to go to the deer lease. So all of friends and family were like, let's go shopping. No, I'm going to the deer lease. So, yeah, it was Black Friday, and the weather was just, it couldn't have been any prettier. So.
Gotcha. All right. So let's, before we get to the kill shot, and so you've spotted this deer. He's across the field by about 125 yards. Let's run through an equipment check, head to toe. What are you carrying with you?
I have my binoculars with me, and Leopold, and I didn't have my rangefinder with me. I have a Leopold rangefinder, but I didn't have it with me that time. And, I had, I was trying to think of what else I had with me equipment-wise other than my gun. But my gun is a Savage 243 that I've had probably 22, 23 years, and I got it shortly out of high school, so I've had it a long time. And that was my gun. And like I said, my binoculars, I think that's all I had with me, a bottle of water, because like I said, I wasn't planning on really hunting with. I mean, I had my tags and my knife in the truck and stuff, which was, I could see the truck maybe, 100 yards from me. It was more like 200 yards from me, the other direction of the stand. So
okay, so you had your truck about a couple hundred yards the opposite direction. You had the deer in front of you. You had your tree stand between your truck and the deer. And
actually, yeah, pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah, the truck was kind of behind me, and the deer was in front of me, to the left a little bit.
But basically, you're packing light. You don't have to go that far. The truck's pretty nearby, so you don't have to. It's not like you're hiking it in too far.
Right.
It's just kind of
it was
comfortable
walking
hunt.
Across the field. Yeah, it was awesome. Yeah, just walking across that field, and I just had my like at the end Under Armour shirt on and my Under Armour jacket, so it was, and I had my coveralls with me just in case it got cold, because I was going to stay there till dark, and I was like, that sun goes down, it's going to start dropping down in the 40s and 30s, so I had my coveralls with me. Right. But I was sitting on them, I didn't have them on.
So a pretty mild day overall.
Oh yeah.
Did you do any scent preparation or preparation for like washing clothes or anything like that when you got there?
I don't do that at all. I've heard pros and cons about it, and I used to do that, wash it in baking soda and wash all of that, but I grew up hunting with my dad, and we would just go out in the woods, and I'd lean up against a tree and or we actually hunted. We didn't have stands and feeders when I grew up hunting. I started when I was like probably 8 with him. And so and I saw Daddy kill several deer with none of that. So I just grew up to, I don't, to where I don't feel like all that stuff has to be done. And a lot of people do and need it or whatever. And I don't know. I see the pros and cons to it.
Yeah,
so.
I'm always curious, only because, there are lots of products on the market. You hear stories about people that are prepping their clothes and being super conscious about scent control, and they say it on TV. But then I've talked to these other people that don't do anything about that, and they still seem to shoot the same amount of deer. So I'm trying to get an overall broad scope as I talk to more and more people about whether it's truly important or not. And it's just interesting to hear different people's perspective. As far as what direction was the wind blowing? Do you remember?
Can I back up 1 second?
Absolutely.
Right there?
Yeah.
About the scent stuff. Some people I know will smoke cigarettes in the stand, and it's like you can smell a cigarette a mile away if you don't smoke, and I'm sure a deer can smell it. And they smoke in the stand or dip, and it's like if they can't smell body scents, how are these people that hunt and that dip and smoke in the stands killing big bucks too? It's like, to me, so you see what I'm saying there? It's like, but if you're bow hunting and you're 6, 8 feet, 10 feet off the ground, and you've got to have your buck within 15 yards of you, I would be more conscious of scent control and stuff like that. But I don't generally hunt from a tree stand like that. I used to have a climbing stand, and just kind of got away from them now. I'll just go out in the woods, and I've got a ground blind that I'll get in, out there at my other deer lease. And I'm more conscious of stuff, and I don't do all the washing of the stuff like I used to.
Cool. Fair enough.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So tell us about the wind direction then. If was that blowing in your face, or what direction was the deer at?
He was, let me think. He was to the west of me, and we had a northern wind that day. So he was almost straight across from me due west. And like I said, the wind was coming from my north, from my side going south. So I don't think he would have caught wind of me anyway, just from where he was, straight across from me,
Gotcha.
125 yards out. So it wasn't like I was downwind. And if I would have been, the wind was coming out of the north, like I said, there was nothing but 40 acres of open field to my left, to blowing south. So they would have had to been out in that open wind for them to get, open range for them to get wind of me.
Gotcha. Okay. All right. So we've set the stage here. Now bring us back to where we left off. You're in your stand. You've spotted the deer. It's behind a giant oak tree, and you can see antlers. Take us from that point.
Okay, I could see antlers, and like I said, he was eating some leaves off some trees, and wasn't in a hurry. I kept seeing if he was like looking around to, for does or if there were another buck with him. But the rut had just started here, so it wasn't like they were in full rut yet. But I didn't know if the bachelors had kind of split off yet, so I didn't know what was with him. So I'm sitting there watching him, and he finally steps out, and I could see his body, and I saw, like I said, his antlers. Not real clear because there were several trees between us. Well, then he turns away and starts walking away from me back into the woods deeper, and I'm like, dang! I was like, oh, I lost him, because that was on another property. That wasn't the lease that I was on, so I couldn't have shot him anyway because he was across the fence. Right. So there was a fence line there. So I was like, okay. So I put my binoculars down, and I kind of just looked around to the right, and I'd hunted in this stand before, and I'd seen a coyote, and I was kind of looking for the coyote. I was like, that coyote comes back, I'm going to take that coyote and get him mounted. And so I was kind of looking for the coyote, and I just thought that deer just went back in the woods. So I'm sitting there, and I looked back around to where that deer had been, and he was standing out in the open field. He went around and came back and jumped the fence and came out in the open field. And I was like, oh my gosh. I couldn't believe it, so that's when I got my gun up, and I was looking through my scope, and he was actually headed south away from the feeder, because the feeder was kind of west of me. And he was headed away from the feeder, so I don't think he even knew the feeder was there or had been in this territory or knew anything about it, or, the feeder had been empty so long he never used it or whatever. So he was headed south, kind of at a diagonal away from me. And I never saw him head on, so I could never tell. We have the 13-inch rule down here now. I don't know if y'all have that now. They have to have at least 13-inch spread. And
is that a state rule or a county rule or just a...
That's what I did. I don't know.
Okay.
I know I think it's a state, Texas. So
okay.
I know it's the county I was in, but I think it's state. It has to be 13 inches, or most of the counties around here anyway. We have a minimum 13-inch spread. So okay. I never saw him from straight on. So I'm like, oh my gosh, do I shoot? Oh my gosh, do I shoot? And I'm looking through my scope, and he never would turn and look at me. And I whistled because I didn't have a grunt or anything with me. And I don't know if the wind was blowing and he didn't hear me. And he just kept on walking and just kind of easing along. It wasn't like he was scared or anything. And anyway, that was when the girl took the picture of me. And so I was there, and I was sitting on the edge of my chair, kind of leaned out. I thought I was going to fall out of my chair. I had my hand up in the windowsill holding my gun, and I was kind of shaking, and I was like, I was like getting buck fever, I guess. And I'm like, Bonnie, breathe. So I took a deep breath, and I just exhaled. And when I exhaled and got down to where my breath was gone, I squeezed my trigger, and he dropped like a rock. He never took another step. So wow. I was like, and then as soon as he dropped, I turned around and looked at her, and I was like, oh my gosh. And my legs and my hands started shaking so bad. It was so awesome. And I wish you'd have had, like I said, I wish you'd have had a video, because it was really cool.
Yeah.
But anyway, I sat there, and he never moved, never flinched, anything. So I waited just 5-10 minutes. I was like, he's down, he's done, and about 10 minutes probably. And I went down there, and perfect long shot, and went up to the truck, and I was just so excited. And she started she said, here, let me get a picture. So she took several pictures of me, and that's one of the pictures that you'd seen. Yep. And so we took several pictures, and then I was sweating because I guess my adrenaline was up, and I'm taking my jacket off, and I have just my Under Armour shirt on. And and then she took a few more pictures, so it looked like we were having a photo shoot out there. So it was pretty awesome, though. I was really proud of him. And anyway, we went. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're doing great.
Okay.
The backdrop is beautiful, and the scenery. I can kind of, now that you've told us the story, I can envision where you were and how it was set up. And was the deer in approximately the same spot where you shot it where you took the picture?
Yes, that was exactly where he dropped.
Gotcha. All right.
So, I never moved him. So I just went down there and sat down beside him, and we took pictures right there where he dropped.
That's awesome. That's why I like to hear the story behind the picture. There's a picture is always worth 1,000 words. I like to hear them. I like to hear the words behind the picture. And now I've got this visual of how it all went down. That's awesome. So how did you get the deer out of the field?
Went and got the truck, brought it over. And I got my tags out, and I'm going to put in a tiny little story here right quick.
Absolutely.
That's pretty cool. I'll get to the other half of that in a second.
Sure.
But I went to hunting extravaganza back in August here. Oh, sorry, my mom's.
That's okay.
I have to edit this part, I guess. Sorry.
Yeah, don't worry about it. That's why we record the stuff and I edit later.
Exactly. Her grandfather clock's going off. Anyway, okay. I went to a hunting and fishing extravaganza back in August, and I went around and looked at all the stuff. They had some booths set up, and I registered for some drawings and bought some tickets for the raffles that they were giving away, guns and bows and all kinds of stuff. And at the end, I was fixing to leave, and I walked around, and there was this taxidermist there, and he had these little plastic tag holders, like when you kill a deer, you put it in there, and it keep blood and water or whatever from getting on it.
Yep.
And it had like a little bread tie with it, and you put your tag in there and close it, and you bread tie it around your antlers. Anyway, I picked up one of those, and it was in my truck, so that's what I was like. I went and got that out, and it had one of his business cards in there, Tire Taxidermy. And I used that, stuck my tag, filled out my tag, put my tag in there. She and I loaded it up, picked him up, which my truck has like a 6-inch lift kit on it. So lifting him up and putting him in the back of the truck, it was pretty tough. I don't know exactly what he weighed. He was at least 150. And, but we got him up in there. It was pretty good. And, we loaded him up and headed back to the camp where we were originally, the big hunting camp. So
gotcha. Where do you think that deer came from? Do you think it was just cruising through, not quite knowing? You said you didn't think it was from that area necessarily.
Well, right. That's what we got back to camp, and we were one of the first ones back, and we hung out there for a few minutes. Her dad came back, her uncle came back, and, a few other people came back, and they were like, oh, wow, that's awesome deer. And they all looked at him, and they're like, we've been hunting out here like crazy and for years. And he said, we have never seen this deer, because you know how you'll see a deer year to year.
Right.
And, or, if you're scouting or whatever. And all of them were like, we have never seen this deer out here. So that's what made me think he was either passing through, but it wasn't like he was chasing a doe that brought him from another county away or something. So I don't know, or he had just been in those deep woods and had never come out, to the hay meadow where they had seen him. So,
is it possible that he got pushed out at some other location from other hunters or things like that? Or
it's very, very, very possible.
Okay.
Because west of me, where like I was sitting in my stand and then the pasture and then the wood lines and where he was, on farther west of that, probably another 10 miles, there's a Natchez River, which is a big river that runs through here. And there's a lot of hunting leases, and it's river bottom, great big hunting land, and several hunters out through there. So it's very possible one of them could have pushed him from another area between us and the Natchez River.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's possible. Now, what is the camp like? Tell us about the camp.
The camp is the coolest camp I've ever seen. It really is. It started out with just this tiny little, I think the guy said like an 8x8 little bitty room that they made. And then it grew into like a 20x20. And then they added like a roll-up door out back and built another room onto it and put a wood stove in there. And about 10 beds. They had like little cots and twin-size beds in there. And this camp would hold probably, I think they said 16 people. And so they have Thanksgiving out there every year and have the whole family and kids and everybody out there, grandma and everything. So they have running water, well, not running water. They have a big barrel, like a 55-gallon barrel that it rains in.
Yep.
And then they have this plumbing, like a 2-inch PVC pipe that runs down into the kitchen. They have 2 stoves in there, and they have propane out there, and but it's pretty primitive. It sounds like it's not, but they don't have like electricity. They have generators and stuff. So the stoves are electric and they just run off a generator. But
Gotcha.
They cook big meals and everything. They have a sink and kitchen cabinets like they would find at salvage places. And then in the center of this, they had another bathroom with, like I said, that kind of running water, from the deal where you could flush a toilet. So it was pretty neat. And, but the highlight of the camp, they had this huge, like, potbelly stove right in the center, like the gathering area, and the pipe ran up through the ceiling, and it was like a screened-in porch type deal,
yeah.
So you could get in out of the weather, or mosquitoes during the summer, or whatever. So it's a year-round camp that they go out there because it's close to the Natchez River where they camp and fish and all of that. So, but yeah, the highlight was the big potbelly stove that everybody stands around and tell stories
Right. Oh, that's the best.
Yeah, it was a very awesome camp, and they also had this bar that was like I'm guessing kind of waist high, a little bit higher than waist high, and some bar stools around it, 3 or 4 bar stools. And they had these cedar posts that went from the sides of it up to the ceiling, and it was like rough cut cedar. And it was just, whoever made this place, it was just ingenious. And like some of the smaller bucks they had killed down there, they had just the racks hanging up everywhere, or they had a few like European mounts, the smaller ones that they just did themselves, not professionally European mounted, just scattered all around the camp. And it was just awesome deer leaves. They called it Skeeter Hill, like mosquito.
Yeah, right.
It's Skeeter Hill, so
Skeeter Hill.
It's a pretty awesome place. Yeah, Skeeter Hill.
Sounds like a magical place. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a 1,000-acre lease.
Okay.
So they have 1,000 acres down there that they hunt on, and I was kind of down the road on this other little piece, a 40-acre hay meadow deal. So, but all of that where they were a pine plantation.
Gotcha. And you were invited to hunt on this property by the lease owner?
Right.
Wow, that's cool. And how did you bump into them?
They're actually friends of mine. They live in Jacksonville, probably about 20 miles from here. Okay. And like I said, the daughter and I were friends, and they're like, well, come on out and have Thanksgiving with us. And, you can stay the weekend. We're just going to hunt and hang out and eat and blah, blah, blah. So, like, okay, cool. So I took advantage of it, and it worked out really well.
As you said, it's pretty good Black Friday, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
Now, how about processing the deer? Did you have it sent off to be done, or do you do it at the camp?
We cut it up there and quartered it, and I got back there. We hung him up there, and they had a scale, and they somewhat weighed him, but it only went up to 150 pounds. So that's what I said. I knew it weighed at least 150 pounds. Yep. And he doesn't look that big there, but I don't know. I mean, from that front shot, you don't see, but his body, he was pretty big. But anyway, I did the first skin cut, and I did most of the skinning myself, and got him down to where I knew I was gonna mount him. So I got down and like behind his back legs, I cut down and around his legs, and we peeled it all the way back and went all the way up to probably the second vertebrae from his skull, and then we cut it off there and just left all of the skin intact back behind his front legs. So gotcha. Then we quartered up all the meat and took the back strap out and put it on ice, and it was pretty cold that night. It dropped down to I think like 28, 29. So we just left it in coolers with ice outside. We knew it was going to be okay. So,
right. You had some good temperatures coming in that night.
Right,
so
exactly.
Now
so it worked out.
Did you you ended up cutting up the deer right away, it sounded like.
Right, yeah.
Not a multi-day hanging event. This is...
Oh, no.
Okay, gotcha. The temperatures don't sound like they're conducive to letting a deer hang for very long in that part of the country that time of year. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're used to doing it right then. I mean, we gut and usually field gut it, but I knew I was just like a couple of miles from the cabin, so I was like, we'll just get him back there and do it there. And we were back there within 10 and 15 minutes. So
gotcha.
And it had already dropped down in the 40s by then, so I knew we were okay.
Gotcha. And how was the meat? How was the flavor?
Excellent. I sent him to actually cut the back strap up, and we cut it in steaks and had it vacuum packed, and like 4 steaks in each vacuum pack. So that was awesome. And then I sent it to some friends of mine, Jim and Debbie Terry. They're friends of mine in Jacksonville, and they process all their own meat and make summer sausage and breakfast sausage. They add like a pork fat back into the breakfast sausage, and of course season it and everything. But the summer sausage they made was incredible. He asked me if I wanted jalapeno, and I was like, yes, absolutely. So he put some jalapeno and cheese in there, and it was the best summer sausage. And I brought some back to my family, my mom and her sisters, and all 3 of them don't eat deer meat. They're not anti-hunters, but they're like not adventurous eaters. So
yeah, I know the kind.
Yeah, I'm like tried tricking them into it. They're like, no, that's deer meat. And I said, no, it's not. Try it. And my aunt actually tried it. She goes, oh my gosh, that's really good. And I didn't ever tell her that it was deer meat though.
Right. Gotcha.
But yeah, that turned out really good. So, the flavor was incredible. It didn't have that wild taste. And, one thing they did do when I gave the meat to Debbie and Jim, which I thought this was pretty cool, and I haven't seen this done, and he said that this helps with any wild flavor, is that they put it on ice in a cooler, and then they just open the bottom drain out, like leave the plug out and let it melt down, and they add ice to it for like 3 or 4 days and let the blood drain out. As the ice melts, the water kind of rinses through the meat and drains out the deal. They said that they always do that with at least 3 or 4 days. And so I was like, I didn't ever know that. I thought that was pretty cool. So that helps with the flavor of some people don't like that wild taste that some deer have. So
we do plan to do a future show on to speak with a venison chef and to learn more about how to tackle things like that. Well, like what things work, what things don't, and really get into that in depth. But it sounds like they have a trick for it down in Texas. That's cool. What were the deer foraging on? Is it corn, soybeans, grass, acorns? What are they feeding on?
We don't have any soybeans around here. Mostly acorns usually, but this year we had no acorns. I don't know. We had a lot of rain this year, but I guess we just didn't have it at the right time. So there's no pecans this year and there's no acorns this year. So feeders. I mean, everybody's filling up deer with deer corn or corn with all their feeders, and they were emptying feeders out in no time. So, we had a lot of people would put it, on timers that, they were gone, but there was, not much. Like I said, there was not much. So I guess they were just foraging on grass and whatever they could find this year. Because like I said, there was no acorns this year. But usually that's what they love. That's their favorite around here.
Okay. So no distinct mass crop this year in your area.
No.
Gotcha.
No.
Awesome. And this has been a great time, Bonnie. I appreciate you taking some minutes out of your day to speak with us about your hunt and kind of fill us in on what the hunt's like down there in Texas.
Well, I have one more story.
Absolutely.
I want to add this one little part. This comes back to the part where I was talking about the little plastic tag holder.
Yep.
When I got back to the deer lease and we had got him all, it was probably about 5:30 when we got him skinned and everything. And I went and got that business card, and I called the number to see if they were still open because I was about 20 minutes from Palestine where the taxidermist was. And I was like, I'll just take this down there now because I don't have a freezer big enough to put him in. I don't have like a big chest freezer or anything. So I said, I'll see if they're open. Well, they weren't open. So I'm like, I got to find somewhere to put him for the rest of the weekend until Monday. With it being a holiday weekend, he's not going to be open until Monday. And so I put it in a friend of mine, one of the guys there. He asked his brother, do you have room in your freezer? Absolutely. Bring it over. So they took it over the next day and put it in his freezer until Tuesday. I went to his brother's and got it out of the freezer, and I went down to Palestine to this taxidermist. And I went in there and I told him what I had, and I said, I've got a big buck. And he said, well, how'd you hear about us? And I said, I saw y'all at the Hunters Extravaganza back in August. He goes, oh, that's cool, awesome. And so we start talking, and he's asking me what kind of mount I want and position and everything. And he said, well, there's a new kind of position I'm doing. Come back here and look. And he took me back in the back where he does all of his work in the taxidermist deal. And my heart stopped. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing ever. I've always admired taxidermy, and I've always thought it's really cool and beautiful, and I love what they do with animals. I've been a nurse for 20 years, been surgery, all of that stuff. So none of that stuff grosses me out or anything. So I'm thinking, this is so cool. So I'm sitting there talking to him and asking him questions. This was like 2:00 when I got there. At 5:00, I'm still there hanging out, talking to him. And there's another guy that works with him. His name's Michael, and he was around this little half wall doing something. And I was like, well, what's he doing? And he goes, I don't know, go around there and see. So I went back there and I introduced myself, and we started talking, and he was skinning a deer, and I was like, oh, that is so cool, blah, blah, blah. So I hung out with him the rest of the day till 5:00, and I was like, this is amazing. I was like, I want to do this. I want to do taxidermy. And he's like, really? And I said, yes, this is awesome. He's like, this doesn't gross you out? I'm like, no, this is awesome. This is so cool. So he said, come back, or I said, can I come back tomorrow and hang out and watch y'all? And he said, I guess, if you want to. So I went back the next day, and I watched him skin out a deer all the way down to, getting the cape off around the horns and how they cut everything. And I was like, that is so cool. He said, do you want to do one? And I said, absolutely. I said, heck yeah. So he said, okay, we'll let you do your deer, and if you mess it up, right. You can't do another client's deer, but we'll let you do your deer, and I'll walk you through it. And I said, awesome. So we hung up my deer, and he taught me how to skin it, and I skinned my own deer all the way down to the head and cut his horns off and everything. So that was pretty cool. And from that moment on, I was hooked. I was like, I want to do this. I went home that night And I was like, I prayed about it, and I said, I actually quit nursing about 4 or 5 months ago, and I'm like, I'm so burnt out on nursing. I'm tired of our healthcare system, the way it's going. We can't be nurses like we were 20 years ago, and I just don't like this. So I'm taking another career path for the last 4 months, and I thought about it, and I was like, dental assisting, blah, blah, blah. I thought a million things, nothing sounded good. Never even thought about taxidermy. So that night I got home, I'm looking up taxidermy schools, and I told my mom, I was like, I'm going to taxidermy school. So I was like, this deer has been like a whole life-changing event for me. So, I went back and the next day and hung out with them and have been there ever since, hanging out with them, and learned how to do European mounts. He's let me skin out a bobcat and a fox, and I've done all kinds of deer and everything. Now I learned how to, what they call lip and ears, where you prepare the hide for tanning. And he taught me how to salt and do all of that stuff. So I'm learning all the taxidermy aspects of it now. So
beautiful.
Like I said, that deer was a life-changing thing, because I would have never even thought taxidermy. And so it was just really cool.
Well, that's cool. Well, once you hone your craft, we'll have to have you back on the show to tell us some of the tips and tricks that you can do at home.
Oh, that would be awesome.
That'd be great. Awesome. Any parting thoughts, Bonnie, before we head our...
Just want to thank y'all very much for the interview. I enjoyed it. I could talk about deer hunting for hours with anybody, or any kind of hunting really, and
awesome.
And just outdoors fishing, anything. I just love it, and I want to give a shout out to all of the country girls. I've gotten a lot of girl power things. The girls are like, "You go, girl," and stuff like that. So just give a shout out to all the country girls that hunt, and encourage women to get more into hunting and take your kids hunting. Like I said, those are the best memories I have, was growing up either rodeoing or hunting with my dad or fishing, and versus being in a mall or sitting watching TV. People are like, "Did you watch some TV show when you were little?" I was like, "Nope, I was outside either on my horse or on a dirt bike, one or the other." I never did. I didn't grow up watching TV, so.
Yep, I watched, when I was a kid, I watched Tarzan on Thursday nights with a TV dinner, and then I also watched Super Friends on Saturday morning, and that was it.
That was it,
Rest of the time, I was in the woods.
I do remember coming home early on Saturday nights to watch wrestling, when wrestling was really big back when the Von Erichs and all of them were in there. I remember I'd come home and I was like, I got to go home, wrestling's coming on. So I would go home and watch wrestling. So,
Chief Jay Strongbow and Greg Valentine and all those guys.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
awesome.
True. But I just encourage families to get out and hunt, and love to see kids hunting. A friend of mine, Todd, his daughter, Becca, just killed her first deer with a crossbow this year. It was her first year to hunt with a bow. She's had a bow for a year and a half now, but her poundage wasn't high enough to hunt with, so he bought her a cross. She has excellent shot with her crossbow, but it only goes up to like 25 pounds, I think. So he got her that crossbow, and she got a nice 8-point. He's bigger than mine. And I was like, wow, that's just crazy. So I just encouraged him and other parents to take their kids hunting. I think it's an awesome thing.
I couldn't agree more. That's one of the best messages. And I think hunting is getting more and more overlooked as a pastime, and we're kind of forgetting about the strengths of it. And I encourage more and more people to get out there and do it. And it's a huge part of the economy. It's good for the psyche, and it's good for bonding and solidifying families and things like that. So I agree.
Totally agree with you, 100%. Yeah, and it gives kids and people, not just kids, it gives people things to look forward to. Like, oh, I can't go to the bar tonight because I got to get up at 4:30. I got to be in the sand. So there's some friends that are like that quit drinking because they're like deer season. It's like you got to get up early, and so I think that's a cool thing. And but kids, give them something to do like that versus being in a mall or on the computer getting into trouble with stuff nowadays. And so I just think it's an awesome thing.
Yeah, skip the video games for a couple days and take your kids out in the woods.
Exactly. Yep. Totally agree.
Yep, totally agree too. Bonnie, this has been great. I love your energy. I love your spunk. I think you're on the right track. And thanks for sharing your picture on the Big Buck Registry. And thanks for being on the Big Buck Podcast. This has been fantastic.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Jay. I appreciate it. And I'd like to talk to you anytime.
All right. We'll be in touch. Thank you, Bonnie.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, take care. Bye-bye. So that was Bonny Cook from Texas. That was pretty cool.
Jay, family values there, that talking about her daddy and how she grew up and what she's got going on in her life, that means a ton in the hunting industry. Family, good roots bring in good hunting.
Absolutely. And that was a common theme with Matt. And it's a very common theme for everybody that we seem to talk to that it has a passion for the outdoors. There's always some other figure in their life that taught them how to appreciate and enjoy the outdoors and then to share it with others down the road. So that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. We really enjoyed you joining in and, keep on pushing them roots deeper into the ground. That's what's unique about the Big Buck Registry, Big Buck Podcast. We get into some detail on where a hunter comes from, and that's something I enjoy talking about. And I hope everybody that listens does too also. We get down deep into their background and we bring out what got them to the point that they're at today.
Yep. Week in, week out. We want to know how you got to where you are today and why your passion is so deep for hunting. And that's what we're trying to expose here on the Big Buck Registry because it's important. All right, man. I think that's a wrap.
For sure. Great podcast. And I look forward to next week.
Me too. I think it's going to be awesome. So where can we reach out to you, Dusty?
www.facebook.com/Chubby Tines Outdoors.
Awesome. And if you would like to touch base with us on the Big Buck Registry, we have a few different spots you can check. Number one, you can go to our website. It's www.bigbuckregistry.com. You can check us out on Facebook, which is facebook.com/Big Buck Registry. Our Twitter handle is Big Buck Registry. You can give us a call at 724-613-2825. You can text in a message from there. You can text in a picture from there. You can also call us and tell us your story about the deer that you've harvested if you're up for that. If you'd like to do a share for share, go ahead and post it on Facebook and be forewarned, though. We may ask you to be on the Big Buck podcast as well. And I think that's about it. And of course, if you're listening to the podcast, push that button, share it. If you're on Stitcher, use the share button, send it out to your email database of all your friends that like hunting, or send it out to your Facebook page, or send it out to your Twitter account, or text it to your best bud that you like to hunt with. Or if you're on iTunes, same thing. Share away. Because we want to expose our show to everybody that enjoys hunting, because we would like to have them on our show too, and we're not going to know who they are unless you share the show. Did I sum that up all right?
You summed that up perfect.
Awesome. Sounds good, man.
I'm your co-host, Dusty Phillips.
And this is Jay Scott. We'll see you next week.
Can't wait.